Recently, scientists, including yours truly, identified and characterized a great hammerhead nursery in a place that you genuinely would not believe. And the methods used to unfold this mystery are my favorite part of the whole story. Imagine you're a baby hammerhead shark. You're barely 2 feet long. Everything bigger than you can eat you. You're supposed to grow up to be one of the world's most powerful predators, but right now you're just funny looking food trying not to die. Where do you grow up? You're a coastal shark, so not the open ocean, not the deep sea. A reef? Predators and competitors around every corner. No, you need somewhere shallow, somewhere sheltered and protected. Maybe even somewhere unexpected. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Apex Files. I'm your host, John Halavin, shark researcher, marine ecologist, and someone who has spent an unreasonable amount of time thinking about what sharks eat, where they go, and why it matters. On this channel, we're diving into real shark science. The discoveries, the misconceptions, and the stories behind the research that usually never makes it past the academic journals. For our very first file, we're starting somewhere extraordinarily ordinary. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down what makes a habitat a shark nursery, why great hammerheads and their babies are so special, and how years of scattered data quietly built toward a discovery that most people, even locals, never saw coming. In shark ecology, we're careful with the word nursery. A true nursery isn't just where babies show up, it has to meet 3 criteria. The first is that young sharks occur more frequently in that area than in other areas. Second, they stay in the area for an extended period of time, aka their residence. And third, the species shows site fidelity to that area as a nursery across multiple years. Remember those 3 criteria because they're going to matter a lot in a few minutes. Meeting all 3 can be rare. Meeting all 3 for a critically endangered species, even rarer. Now enter the great hammerhead, Sphaeronomacron. The great hammerhead isn't just any other shark, it is the largest hammerhead species on Earth, capable of reaching over 18 feet in length. A specialized hunter with electroreceptors spread along that iconic hammer-shaped head called a cephalofoil, which not only allows it to detect prey buried beneath the sand like a biological metal detector, but also, in combination with a huge, massive dorsal fin, allows it to turn on a dime like a John Deere, unlike any other shark its size. But despite that size and power, great hammerheads are listed as critically endangered. They grow slowly, they mature late, and their preference for nearshore habitats puts them seriously in harm's way. Because they're still prized for their fins, and they have an extreme sensitivity to capture stress. That means bycatch or even catch and release recreational fishing can prove fatal. So when we're talking about juveniles surviving the first few years of their life, what we're actually talking about is the future trajectory of the species itself. And while adults are apex predators, babies are only about 2 feet long when they're born, and a baby shark is just prey with a dream. For a species like this, choosing the wrong starting point isn't just a minor mistake, it's evolutionary suicide. And so the question becomes, where does a species built for coastal dominance choose to spend the most vulnerable years of its life? And well, the solution that they evolved is smarter than most people would expect. It wasn't remote, it wasn't hidden, and it certainly wasn't pristine. So allow me to welcome you to Miami, better known for its nightlife, neon lights, and beaches than it is for its marine wildlife, but just a stone's throw away is Biscayne Bay, a shallow subtropical estuary that, although is heavily disturbed, still is home to some very valuable habitats including mangroves, seagrass meadows, and patch reefs, but nothing that would scream critical shark habitat. But for years, local researchers kept seeing the same thing: juvenile great hammerheads. Not once, not twice, but repeated captures across years, the first 2 nursery criteria. Then, a singular, beautiful, and oh so rare recapture. An individual had stayed in the area for several months, giving the first indication of that 3rd criterion, residency. But declaring a nursery isn't casual, and one recapture isn't much to go off of. You see, nursery designation can have real conservation consequences: fisheries management, habitat protection, coastal development, so on and so forth. And while survey data was suggesting recurring recruitment rather than random strays, observation data alone was struggling to answer the key question: are these juvenile sharks feeding and growing up here? Not just we see them here, but they depend on this place. And if that test failed, then the whole nursery idea would collapse. And that's where one particularly powerful methodology was able to peel back the covers. Enter biogeochemistry and stable isotope analysis. I promise it's a lot cooler than it sounds. Basically, it rests on the premise that different habitats in the ocean can leave slightly different chemical signatures in the food chain. And when a shark eats prey from a specific environment, that signature gets incorporated into its tissues. It's basically very coarse scale dietary GPS. And different tissues act like different clocks. Muscle reflects longer term feeding history, while plasma reflects more recent meals. So by comparing different tissue types, you can look at things like seasonality. So instead of asking, where did we catch this shark? By analyzing the isotopes of an animal's tissues, scientists can ask, where has this shark actually been feeding? And those answers can tell completely different stories. And it is using this methodology that in 2025, a study led by yours truly, along with my PhD advisor, Dr. Catherine McDonald, published in Ecology and Evolution, was finally able to connect the dots. The isotopic signatures of tiny muscle and plasma samples collected from great hammerheads over nearly a decade were analyzed, and the patterns were striking. The youngest sharks showed strong inshore signatures, meaning that they weren't just visitors, they were exclusively feeding within Biscayne Bay year-round. And then, at around 2 years old, they began to show a shift towards coastal signatures. Not an abrupt exit, but a gradual expansion into reef-associated foraging habitats. And maybe the most interesting detail of all is that even after beginning this offshore shift, many larger immature individuals still showed a seasonal return to the bay during the wet season, showing that the bay isn't just a starting line, even though it's the most important to the sharks for the first 2 years of their life. It remains an important aspect of their entire growth to maturity, even after they have started to use coastal offshore resources. The story moved from niche ecology to mainstream awareness almost immediately. Forbes highlighted the conservation implications of an endangered apex predator depending on an urban estuary. BBC Discover Wildlife emphasized how rare confirmed great hammerhead nurseries are worldwide. And Popular Science focused on the paradox that one of Florida's most developed coastlines is also supporting one of its most vulnerable marine species. But recognition introduces complexity, and the same shallow, productive features that benefit sharks also attract heavy human use. Unfortunately, great hammerheads are very sensitive to capture stress, and because they depend so heavily on Biscayne Bay means that they will also overlap with the dense recreational fishing and boating activity there. In fact, during the study, the body of a young great hammerhead, only about 3 years old, was recovered and sampled after falling victim to post-release mortality within the nursery. The challenge isn't humans versus sharks. It's understanding timing, handling practices, and habitat quality well enough that both can coexist in the same space. Biscayne Bay challenges the idea that important conservation habitats can only be found in remote, untouched places. It shows that important ecological processes can persist right beside major cities, hidden beneath everyday activity. So if you were that 2-foot hammerhead from the beginning, this is where you would choose, not because it's pristine, not because it's remote, but because it works. The future of an apex predator doesn't always begin in wild, untouched places. Sometimes it begins in shallow, dirty water beneath a flotilla of day-drinking boaters, hidden in plain sight. And recognizing that might be one of the most important steps towards making sure that they remain part of our oceans for generations to come. This is the Apex Files, where shark science meets the stories behind the data. If you want evidence over hype, ecology over exaggeration, and sharks explain the way that scientists actually study them, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There are a lot more files to open. I'll see you in the next one.